Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, first of all, good evenings to everyone, and really a very warm welcome to our guest speakers, keynote speakers, and all the attendees and the participants to this event, which is a BLBA and IDCBS co-hosted event, uh, basically with the objective to talk about the COVID impact on the real estate industry. Now, as you all know, my name is Rajiv Dhawan, and I am the president of the Belgium-Luxembourg Business Association. Just to introduce myself briefly. As you all know, we are all going through unprecedented times. I don't think in our generation we have seen this kind of a scenario, this kind of a situation. We're all going through a period of great distress as well as economic ravages that we can see because of the impact coronavirus and its fallout has had on the economy. And as we all know that the economy is a cycle, so it's not really that, one angle will escape and the other will do well, so it's all really interlinked. Of course, in everything, we have to see the positivity and the green shoots. But at the moment, the situation being what it is, we have to state what the challenges are in front of it. Now, as you know, the coronavirus, when it arrived, this pandemic, it was already on top of a faltering global economy. Already there were some issues that were there at the start of January or the end of December, before the pandemic really hit, the global markets and the world. Currently, if you see, as of probably May, more than 3 billion people globally, that's nearly about 50% of the global population, has been under some kind of either a forced restriction on movement or a lockdown or anything to do with the coronavirus. So that means it's really had an unprecedented impact, on movement, which is linked to, of course, to the economy of the nations also. We felt that in this context, BLBA and IDCBS together, we have been hosting various number of webinars in the last couple of months, jointly as well as individually also. And we are very happy to bring that kind of a knowledge base to our members. We felt that, real estate was something that we really wanted to talk about, even though, as we were discussing, a few moments earlier, that this topic has been discussed quite a bit also. I think we always find newness in it, freshness in it, and I think it's got a value for all the people, and of course, when we talk about the real estate, we're not just talking about the residential part, of course. We're also talking about the offices, the retail, the hospitality factor, which has also been hit very significantly for this. And in addition to that, the human and the economic impact of the COVID. Now, I've had the chance to, attend a couple of webinars on real estate in the last couple of months. One of them was where, Mr. Hirandani was there, the president from Nardeco. And another one was where Sanjay Dutt was there, the MD of Tata Realty, And while Mr. Hiranandani's point of view was that more we are going to see probably a U or a W-shaped kind of a recovery, meaning that there's going to be a significant long-lasting impact, Sanjay's view was that, yes, we will see that, but probably on some segments, maybe like the office segment, and not like a W or a U kind of a recovery, which is more on a longer phase. In any case, those are things that with time we will understand and we will see which goes on further. When you look at the situation globally, you also see that in any kind of an eviction to do. In the Asian context, we see that there have been massive talk about rental rebates and things like deferment of payments, in order to, of course, accommodate people who have been hit very badly because of this crisis. When I see it from a real corporate re-entry point of view, when does corporates, really get the hang of it? We see issues linked to the financing and the liquidity aspect of it. There is going to be probably significant project delays in the launches also, or maybe in the project also they're going to be pushed back. Issues of pricing are probably going to be also going to get compounded. And then, which are some other things that are going to happen as I mentioned, that in the negativity also find some positivity, that maybe some new innovative things will come up, like we already witnessing remote working, work from home, and maybe flexi space. So those issues will also come pretty important, I think, in the future as the industry readjusts to the new normal. Once the coronavirus thing is behind everyone. It will also probably have an impact on the designing of the house space, the designing on the office space, the physical distance and the sanitization aspect, which people will probably take it in a very important and in a crucial way. I'm very pleased by the fact that, we got a very high-powered panel, from very marquee companies like JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, CBRE, and also from Bharti Realty. So we're very pleased about the fact that we've got an excellent panel there who will educate and take it forward, on this whole thing. Just a small word about BLBA before I hand over to my colleague Raghav, is that BLBA is an Apex business organization based in Delhi. We represent the business from the Luxembourg and Belgium. We are a 60-member organization and represented by a lot of the Belgian and the Luxembourg companies who are based particularly in the northern part of India. And we have a direct patronage and an association also with the Belgian embassy and support from the Luxembourg embassy. So we are very proud of this association and the fact that we have been doing a lot of events of contemporary interest and relevance and importance to our members. We are also very equally pleased because Rajesh is on the call also, and we are very pleased to welcome him also. He's the president of IDCBS, and Indo-Dutch Chamber is the collaborative chamber for BLBA on this particular event also. So very pleased about this. Having said that, I also would like to, in my opening remarks, also mention the great work done by particularly by two of our board members, by Nutan and Raghav, who have taken the lead on this particular thing, to take this forward. And they have approached individually our keynote speakers in order to, tie their time for this particular event. So really thank you, Nutan, and thank you, Raghav, for that, and also to Aditya and to the board members also. So with those words, Amit, because Amit is our cross between IDCBS and BLBA. So with those words, I will hand it over to Raghav to take the event forward. Raghav, the floor is yours.
A very good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, especially our panel of speakers. We are indeed facing an unprecedented situation, as mentioned by Mr. Dhawan, which has impacted almost all industries worldwide. The real estate is a key sector in any economy. In India, it contributes around 6% of the GDP and is one of the largest employers, employing more than 50 million people directly and indirectly. It is estimated that due to this pandemic, the sector has suffered losses in excess of 1 lakh crore rupees. So we would be grateful to our eminent panel to know their views on the impact of the COVID-19 on the real estate sector. And we are joined today by 4 eminent speakers, which includes Mr. Mohit Pruthi from Bharti Realty. Bharti Realty is a leading real estate developer across India. We have Mr. Vibhor Jain and Mr. Prasanna from JLL. Some audio disturbance. As I was saying, we have Mr. Jain and Mr. Prasanna from JLL and Mr. Vishal Ahuja from CBRE. I'm sure you know very well, JLL and CBRE are highly reputed real estate services and investments firms having operations worldwide. May I request everyone to please switch off their mics? Am I audible? All right, so as we proceed with our panel of speakers, it will be followed by the question and answer session. And I request all the audience members to please post their questions on the chat window to me, and your questions will be taken up to the relevant speakers at the end of their sessions. I would like to begin with Mr. Mohit Pruthi from Bharti Realty.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Pruthi. Mr. Pruthi has been associated with Bharti Realty since 2015. He has significantly aligned his efforts towards making Bharti Realty the most admired real estate developer in the country. Mr. Pruthi shall be covering the topic of the impact of COVID-19 on the demand and supply in the real estate sector. Mr. Pruthi, may I request you to please proceed.
Thank you. I think, firstly, the situation that we all are going through, this phase is, again, pretty unique in its nature, and all of us are witnessing this for the first time. And while, we go through the entire ecosystem of real estate, a lot of newness, is being witnessed in the last 3 months, I would say. Largely, as far as Bharti is concerned, we are more into commercial real estate, and we are more into, catering into more of office and retail verticals prima facie. And, to start with the office vertical, I would say the commercial side of the business is, depending on the category of business the corporates are, and depending on the, probably brand mix a particular development would have, has probably seen any change that they might face in terms of, the demands coming in from their tenants, in case if the businesses for their tenants in the capacity that they are working have been serviced unviable due to the coronavirus pandemic. And the observations, maybe they are kind of too early in the day to really, say, but yes, there are some initial dialogues on probably looking at vulnerability of working from home, which probably is yet to define the entire circle of it in terms of how is it going to play in the short run and the long run. Any guesses on the working from home is going to be here to stay, or the aspect of man being a social, the social aspect or the social fiber of the person or a man is quite evident that it has to come back and the life has to go on, unless we find a, kind of a medicine out of it, and people, out of fear are sitting at home and they have to come back. Idea is that the work-life balance also, I see, is not existent in a work from home model, because there are no timelines of working from home and there are no weekends working from home. Practically you are 24/7, depending on the requirement of the client. Office, at least you have a switch off and a switch on kind of a phenomena that we're really seeing coming in from our clients as a request. So people come to office to kind of meet people and have some social dialogues and interact with people, enjoy the places. That's how, the monotony of this working goes away. So I think the initial sentiments of working from home out of fear are working good. People are aligning with it. It's, at the end of the lockdown, people have become habitual of working from home. But I would certainly say that it is wait and watch. The cycle is going to re-emerge and people are going to look at offices. While there might be a scenario of, HOs being at a place where the rentals are higher and the larger part of workforce is going to sit out of where the real estate cost is lesser. Some part of IT-enabled businesses or the backends might look at working from home. Maybe a rationalization of real estate spaces may be on the cards. But yes, all this thing is right now in the making. There is no definite answer that people have already witnessed that I would say that this is the percentage impact, and that's how I would record it as mark in stone, that this is the, way it has been coined right now. So I think these are initial feelers, and the strategy is still evolving, and we are still here to see how in the coming 5 to 6 months this will likely to emerge, and we can certainly see way forward on how in the short run and the long run, the impact of COVID shall be seen in the commercial segment. Predominantly, it's again the mix of the tenants, and it's going to be impacting development wise. I think once strategy shall not fit all developments for that matter. So case to case basis might happen. ITS, I'm sure of the opinion, shall take a hit to an extent. While most of the companies have already given their employees working from home phenomena till November, December. So let's see on that particular category as far as office is concerned. Vishal and people from JLL, I think, are going to reflect on that separately. But that's my initial observation as far as the commercial vertical is concerned. On the retail side of it, I think that's been the worst hit sector, and there are retail as it is. It has different verticals within the retail as a line of business, whether it is entertainment, whether it is F&B, whether it is fashion apparel, whether it is accessories or groceries, or it is electronics. So I think we've seen every part differently impacted in this segment. While groceries have done very well as a category, electronics is seeing a U-curve, I would say, tremendously doing well. I was talking to Chroma people yesterday, and what they have said is that their number of sales of dishwashers and washing machines have recorded a 5-year high that they have never seen in the past 5 years. They've basically witnessed since the lockdown has been over in the last 15 days, and that's quite a huge number that I'm seeing. Grocery numbers have surged 4 times of the normal business that they have done, because most of the cooking is done home. So the F&B business has caught on to the exotic grocery section that I would say in retail. So that these two categories have been pretty active as far as essentials are concerned, and as far as requirements of people are concerned in terms of the gap areas while being in lockdown, that people have really come back and taken care of in case envisaging that any such thing happens in future. They should be pretty prepared with it. As far as fashion apparel is concerned, I think I'm yet to see any movement there. Malls have opened at around 50 to 70% occupancy right now, but I'm yet to see footfalls right now in the market. Malls are dry, waiting for the customers. There is a lot of phobia as far as the market is concerned to really be afraid of that, whether they should be going to the malls right now. There is a lot of negativity, what media is also showing, and the cases are also rising. So that will take some more time till the time we are more mentally comfortable and aligned. So I think malls have still opened, I would say. But yes, entertainment is yet to open, cinema is yet to open, F&B is yet to open. They were critical drivers of the footfall, and they would certainly take another while to get it going. So I think, the mall occupancy, while it's there, it's going up by the day across locations, yes, but, the footfall certainly is going to rise slowly and slowly. It's not something immediate that we'll see, the surge coming in as far as the sales are concerned in the malls. So, but surely, I think there are a lot of renegotiations happening on rentals. Nobody's, able to put a bottom line in terms of how this pandemic is going to shape up and when the customer is going to walk in. So, till the time there is a far sight in terms of that they can see when to start and how people are evolving basis what the country is also seeing from evolved markets where the pandemic is already on a decline. We are trying to put some science behind it and get some financials going. But again, a lot of limitations around specifically F&B with a 9 o'clock curfew and the last shift practically to open majority for lunch, and 7 o'clock the guys have to be sent back. No public transport working as far as Delhi NCR is concerned. People who are working in the restaurants going back to their native places. Restaurants are, at a shortage of chefs right now. So they're also grappling with a lot of issues. So non-paid staff and, while they get this going, any restaurant also to get started needs an initial capital because they've been shut for almost 3.5 months now. So it's a question of where to deploy money, which centers to go. The centers which were already not making money might shut down. Centers which were on a break-even or doing better than the break-even, yes, they're here to stay. So we'll see a lot of exits also happening in the F&B sector. So people have to be careful. I think the partners are already contemplating which center to hold, which center to leave. So that's what is happening on that front of the business, I would say. So I think that's some bit that I would want to reflect on the commercial and retail segment, so to say, as of now. And of course, very sensible areas that people are going to look at in terms of leasing out in the time to come. So obviously the exits also will need to be careful, because replacement also is not easy. It's going to take a while. There are no takers of bigger areas in the market because of the sentiment and the cost of the fit out involved in that. So that's also going to be slow, as I see. So
sorry, you'd like to add something more?
No, I give it back. So I think that's from me so far. So if you have any other question, I'm happy to answer.
All right, questions will be taken up at the end of the session. Once again, I'd like to remind our viewers here to please post your questions on the chat box, and we will take it up towards the end. Very important pointers. Thank you, Mr. Pruthi. Some important takeaways I would say is that in the retail segment, in the commercial real estate, we are seeing drastic change. And we have, in fact, in the recent news, we read that 40% of the shops or restaurants in Khan Market, one of the most expensive markets in the world, is lying vacant now. So I fully agree that this is a wait and watch situation. We need to see how things move forward. And a couple of important pointers there as well, which drives us to our next topic. One is, as Mr. Pruthi mentioned, that there is outflow of the labor, which is impacting the real estate sector development quite heavily. And it would be interesting to know what would be the impact of the government policies and incentives that they have now infused in order to increase demand and liquidity in the market. And also that Mr. Pruthi pointed out that the rental contracts are being renegotiated. So that also leads us to question to know what are the complications arising in the legal contracts, especially related to tenancy. So for both these topics, one is the impact of the government incentives and also the legal complications that are arising in the contracts. I invite Mr. Vibhor Jain, Senior Director and Co-Head for the Markets Business of JLL North Region, who is accompanied by Mr. Sai Prasanna, Senior Director, Legal South Region. Mr. Jain has over 16 years of professional experience with 13 years in real estate service industry at JLL Markets. He is a seasoned professional and an acknowledged expert on India's real estate opportunities. And he is accompanied by Mr. Sai Prasanna, who is the Senior Director of JLL Legal and oversees Legal Affairs South Region. And he also covers certain other businesses across India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Mr. Jain, would you please like to cover those two topics?
Thanks, Raghav, and thanks, Mohit, for giving a brief on the demand and supply. First I'll just pick up the government policies. Although, as we all are aware, the package which has been announced by the government, the basic consensus is that it has not really given much benefit to the people. So from a perspective of real estate, what central government has done is that approximately $270 billion of package which has been announced for real estate. And there are almost 8 to 9 pointers which directly or indirectly affect the real estate pointer. I'll briefly touch upon that. I'll not go into details. So some of them are like Provident Fund contribution for low-wage workers, support to MSMEs, which through the employment generation. Again, these are all factors which will have a sentiment effect and important bearing on the real estate. Easing of liquidity for NBFC and housing finance companies to support the real estate. Affordable rental accommodation scheme for migrant workers, which has been announced by the central government. Auction of airports and additional investments by private players, which is opening of new offices, retail spaces, and logistics. Creation of a GIS-based database for industrial land bank. extension of CLSS in the mid segment, which is for the attractive mortgage rates. Additionally, all these, what they have been done is to give the necessary interventions which were made through liquidity infusion, fiscal support, and reform-driven investment. The last thing what government did is that the lowering of repo rates and the central bank announcement for the moratorium of the loan installments for the developers and for the people in the real estate, apart from the individual house loans, etc. So these were the steps which were taken by the government. However, to sum it up, what I feel that this does not address all the concerns of the stakeholders within real estate. Given, as Raghav, you mentioned, the employment which is generated by this sector and the criticality of this sector for the overall economic growth, a sector-specific growth package, and particularly hospitality and modern retail, as Mohit pointed out, would really have gone a long way in reviving the economy. So that's what my analysis of the package which government has announced and the how government has tried supporting it. Coming to the second pointer, where you mentioned the contracts which are being negotiated and what clients are expecting in the clauses. So majorly three things. So which we are seeing already as demand from clients and in their contracts. So first is the pandemic clause, which somewhere down the line touches the force majeure. As we all are aware that currently most of the contracts which have been signed in real estate, and initially what Raji pointed out, that in our generation this has been seen for the first time, that most of the contracts never have pandemic clauses. So all clients are coming back and asking for insertion of a pandemic clause in their contracts, which should take care of any lockdowns in future, if so that happens. But what we are seeing is that there is still no consensus or an industry sign-off on these clauses. So I believe the big developers like Bharti, Blackstone's, DLFs of the world, once they have a consensus or an industry sign-off, we will see more traction or a common ground on that. Second, the clients are asking, and this is more from a commercial real estate point of view, is flexibility in their portfolio. The flexibility in the portfolio comes from a perspective that if they have 100,000 square foot, they would like to keep a 25% flexible from their lock-ins or from their resizing of the portfolio. This is majorly coming in from the economic situation today, and tomorrow if they need to ramp up or ramp down coming forward, the economy goes up and down, they should have the flexibility. So that's second ask which we are seeing, and the clauses are being worked accordingly for tenants. Third, there has been a big push from clients on the protocols or the SOPs for the hygiene and the sanitization process, etc., in the buildings, where they earlier this was part of the usual business, but now this has been looked into very, very minutely, that what kind of HVAC system building is having, what kind of processes they are having, what kind of maintenance agency developer is being followed, what are the protocols, and they are being made part of the agreement. So I think these are the three clauses which are coming in from the pandemic perspective. So that's what Raghav from my side on these two.
All right, thank you for your inputs, Mr. Jain. Indeed, we will be seeing some changes as we move forward in the contracts, in the way companies shall be functioning, whether they will be working more from home, and as Mr. Pruthi said, that the head office may be only more lucrative to be involving a workspace atmosphere and the other ancillary services to be taken care from home.
On that, Raghav, I just want to add,
Mm-hmm.
we have spoken to a lot of our clients and have been taking their input. That includes a mix, and I'm talking from a commercial real estate point of view. It includes a mix of IT, ITS, the consumer industry, the knowledge processing, back office, all a big mix. So the understanding what we get is that work from home, as Mohit pointed out and briefly touched upon, is something which needs to be seen because there are lots of other factors which comes along with this. One is the Indian culture as well, where our Asia Pac team has also done research because there are constraints with respect to the space available in the houses, which is not so great in India. Second is the data protection, which we all will see a big thing coming forward in future, because most of the companies who are working, their data has to be protected, and while working from home, that becomes a question mark. So the answer which we are getting as a generalization is that anywhere from 5 to 20% of their workflows may continue or will be floating. So just want to point out on that work from home.
And in the, I'd just like to add there with a small question that in the residential space, is there a change in the mindset now that people, rather than taking their houses on lease or being tenants, would have a changed perception that it is better to own a house after experiencing the kind of difficulties and hardships during the pandemic, like we're talking about the tenancy agreements? Is there some kind of a shift that it is better to own a house rather than to rent one?
I think very, very difficult to point out as a generalization right now. But what I hear from developers and what I see, that yes, there is definitely a propensity to own a house, which has been there. But today, in today's uncertain environment, the job market is not that great. That's also a question that how many people are actually willing to put up their savings at stake for buying a house in today's time.
So this change in now the, let's say, might be a temporary change in the working environment, and to work from home, and also the let's say the fears regarding sanitization to contain the virus. Is there a possibly a shift towards more digitization in the real estate market? And for that topic, I'd like to invite Mr. Vishal Ahuja, who is Director Client Solutions Project Management, CBRE South Asia Private Limited. Mr. Ahuja is an architect by profession and has over 18 years of national and international experience. At CBRE Project Management, he is responsible for managing business development activities for the division. Mr. Ahuja would be covering a topic on technology acceleration and impact on construction technologies. And I would also request him to elaborate a little bit more on how technology is being used for the purpose of real estate marketing, and how it is impacting the whole development process in real estate.
Sure, thank you. I think before I start on the technology part, I would like to agree what Mohit and Vibhor have just said. The trend of working from home. If you see, first month of lockdown, everybody was excited. Working from home is doing fantastic, all good. We are productive and so on and so forth. By the time we come to setting in, and now everybody has changed their perspective. So nobody is sure if working from home will continue to the levels that they were expecting 3 months ago. So that's a fact. Everybody is eager to go out, work from the workplace, because that is where you get the productivity. But saying that, bringing in the technology angle to it, I think technology now is getting its due. Be it a blessing in disguise, if you ask me, but whatever we strive for in a construction process, like efficiency, productivity, value, quality, we were relying on manpower for way too long in India. And I'm not saying that any new technologies are getting implemented. No, all these technologies were existing. Now everybody is getting to understand the importance of those technologies. That is a big change that we are seeing right now, and that is what we have seen in the last 2 months. The moment sites have started opening, we are seeing those things coming in, and I'll give you certain examples as well. And what the shift that has come in, technology was always thought of, it's a good to have kind of a thing. If we can afford it, we will use it. Otherwise, we will continue with the traditional method. Now, the trend that will continue for at least 1 year will be, it will become a necessity. And once it becomes a necessity, that is where you will start seeing the value of it in the longer term. That is what we are seeing as a trend. And every company like CBRE, JLL, other large real estate organizations, Bharti, developer side, client side, everyone, they are trying to re-engineer their own processes, internal processes, so that they can adapt to the technological advancements that are already available in the market. No invention, nothing, just adaptation. That is what everybody is striving to do. Like, for example, we have developed in-house a few applications on remote monitoring on sites. Construction sites have reopened. Labor is a problem. We all know that. But what are we doing in terms of inspections? Let's say when the site is towards handover, we do an inspection. Inspection is usually done with the client, the developer, the contractor, the architect, the vendor. So there's a team of 5-6 people go and they do the inspection. Now we can't do that because in current scheme of time, due to social distancing norms and everything. So we have developed an application in which we are doing, and it's all available in the market, nothing new, but we are using it efficiently now. A guy is going around with a camera, recording everything. There and then on the application, they are sending it out so that the concerns can be addressed. So one person, so rather than 7% getting involved, one person is doing that job efficiently. Everything is saved on clouds and everything, documents are saved. Again, nothing new, just the implementation has started. And if I talk about implementation, design coordination. Design coordination, when you're talking about a large development, residential, commercial, retail, or even a large fit out, the design coordination used to be mammoth exercises in which all the consultants used to sit around the table, half-day workshops, sitting in a meeting room to design, do coordination, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that those workshops are not happening. They are still happening, but on platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and the technology platform that they're using for coordination are Revit.
Bloody bastard, zero and they can't. Zero and O mixed up.
Mr. Hiru Vatwani, may I please request you to turn off your microphone?
So, so we are forced to use building intelligence modeling, BIM modeling, to ensure that the coordination is happening, which is fantastic. The technology was available for the last 10 years, but now we are using it more efficiently. All the documents are getting saved rather than wasting a lot of time in emails. Cloud setups were already there, but now again, we are using them. The one thing that we have started using now is 3D printing. We are exploring that to ensure the shop drawings are there so that quality issues are not there. In terms of site management, I've explained what we are doing in terms of quality monitoring. But with this, the client do not need to visit the site. We have installed live cameras on site now. Again, the technology was available, but we are reinforcing it. Which are pan, tilt, and zoom cameras. They can see whatever they want at whatever time they want. By virtue of that, we can monitor and ensure the mandatory requirements of health and safety that needs to be imposed now. This is the new guidelines are implemented in terms of sanitizations. So, these things are getting back in vogue, which in the longer run will be fantastic. And now talking about, this was the information technology part. We are seeing a big change in terms of construction technology per se as well. The buildings which are under construction, the developers, the clients, everybody is asking, how can we, because the time is lost now, we have lost 2, 3, 4 months. How can we bring back the lost time? What are the options? We have to reduce the on-site construction. We have to look for options of prefabricated construction, off-site construction. Same goes for civil construction and interior fit outs. There are a lot of options available, like prefabricated toilet pods, kitchen pods, even meeting rooms for offices, and so on and so forth. Various technologies are available, and what is happening now is everybody is evaluating those. So that will be a big jump for a big learning for the industry, I would say, for the next 3-4 months. We should be thinking about these with a positive outlook, because the enhanced use of technology, both in terms of information and the new techniques for construction, will be here for stay, and that will in long term bring a lot of efficiencies. So that was it from my side.
To add a little bit onto that, do you also see some adaptability from the government and to adapt to digital means? For example, when we go simply to register a property, we all know the conditions that are there in the registrar office. Are there any provisions from the government to provide a digital platform to carry out this work?
See, again, I think there's a start going in right now. I mean, when we respond to government tenders per se, they were on course of, they have to have a DD and a physical signature and so on and so forth. In light of this, they are accepting NEFT transactions and e-signatures, which is a start. So hopefully they will come to that mode as well. So that is what I can say right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahuja. And once again, thank you to all our speakers for covering the various aspects that we see impact us and the industries around us also because of the whole COVID pandemic. I open the floor now for the question and answer session. And I'd like to see, just read the questions that I've received and address it to the relevant speaker. We have a question from Mr. Inyas Hendrik, Vice President, BLBA. He has questions with regard to the liquidity issues. Will builders be able to finish their projects? It was already difficult pre-COVID-19. How will malls sustain if nobody pays rent or maintenance fees? This in case, yeah, that's all. So, Mr. Pruthi, would you like to take that question regarding commercial real estate and the liquidity issues? Your microphone, please.
The way I would want to address it is that this goes on two tangents. One is for the properties which are already operational. For the properties which are already operational, most of the developers have already, pegged the rentals with the banks against the LRDs. And obviously somewhere the lands are freehold, somewhere the lands are on leasehold. So nowhere on, the lands which are on leasehold by government has basically government given any leeways in terms of, any deferments or any waivers. And as far as banks are concerned for the LRDs, there is an issue. Again, for the moratorium, that was also, again, with the penal interest, and there are no waivers there. So developers are also in a flux in terms of how they raise that much of capital, which shall go towards renegotiation of rentals in case if the partners or the tenants are not willing to come on a common platform, which is a win-win to tide over this situation mutually. So this is not a easy answer to address right now. Most of the developers and the partners on the other side are working on a discussion mode to figure out that how we get this going, and it's a situation to tide over, where the developer also gets to tide over the liquidity crisis as far as the rentals, in case if they are not payable by the tenants for the defined period of time. And it's not only limited to the waivers or the negotiations for the lockdown period, it's even about sustenance, depending on which category the partner is as far as the businesses are concerned, because the viability of different businesses are spread over a period of time, whether it is a short run or a long run or a medium run, I would say. So tiding over that and getting the muscle power for the finances is surely a question mark, I would say. And all the developer fraternity is figuring out where to get that, extra capital, whether in form of debt or in form of equity. We are also structuring that, and I think all of the fraternity would be working at ideas on sailing through. There is no simple answer to say as far as the liquidity concern is there. So challenge is surely there, and I think we need to understand the tenant side of the business, and the tenants also need to understand the developer side of the business, and this pain mutually will need to respect each other to tide over this time. There is no common solution. I would say that if we do this, this is going to be over, or if they agree with that, this is going to be over, because everyone is in different stage of evolution, as far as their business is concerned. Second aspect is that the properties which were under development, where the structures were already ready and the leasing was midway, certainly where the properties were under construction and were not even ready, where the OCs were not received, they are in a further situation right now, because obviously there might be on the office segment withdrawal of commitments from the tenants. So in case if there were build to suit requirements, there might be worry of taking that commitment forward. So there might be a negotiation further. So maybe on the commercial side, there might be a flux in terms of going at the speed of that construction, which the developers were already working on. Where the OCs are already received and there was no BTS requirement there, and the structure was basically on a lease format, where already some of the properties were towards, the deals were towards negotiation, are again back on the drawing board. So again, I would say there is a deferment there in terms of no decision making right now, because the companies across globally are facing this crisis. So it's not only pertinent to India, the impact might be coming from US, UK, Europe, all parts of the world right now, where they were wanting to expand in this country, and the commercial real estate was being looked at. Second scenario is the vulnerability of the real estate as well. In case if the developments are dense, where they are basically structured on a lesser density. So example, where the densities are decent, where we are looking at 125 or 150 density per square feet per person. These kind of developments are pretty expensive. And where the vulnerability is there, where, the density is to a tune of 80, 85, and the real estate is, comparatively cheaper. The question here is that, will the cost be a question there per square feet, or the density will be a question? What happens if, a commercial client puts in 20 odd crores in the fit out, and this situation of a pandemic arises tomorrow again, which we have seen for the first time? Are we learning something from this? Are we trying to peg something for future, that we are going to invest in a real estate which is ahead of time, and we are looking at the developments which are adequately planned as far as density is concerned, that in case if something like this happens, they don't have to think of reducing their office space. They are happy, and it's basically next 10 years taken care of. They'll also be looking at future ready developments. So the decision of leasing also will remotely change as far as the requirements of the clients are concerned.
All
and
right.
as far as the retail real estate is concerned, obviously there is deferment in from the client side as far as the fresh fit outs are concerned, because expansions will be on hold because of the capital issue. So I think that might take a delay by 4 to 6 months as far as the opening of the development was structured. So I think this financial year, the openings of the new projects which were under leasing might take a hit.
There is a similar question for, again, Mr. Pruthi, I would say. The question is from Ms. Rashmi Paras. Do we see any movement of existing tenants from high rental places to low rental places by taking advantage of the COVID situation?
While I really don't think so, where the rentals are upwards of 200, it really depends on that. As it is, the vulnerability there with those clients is comparatively lesser. I see more vulnerability as far as, the client is concerned is more on a ITS sector, and the rentals which are kind of sub 100 or 85 to 100 level category, where the impact is probably planned in terms of, again, what kind of a nature of business is there as a core of the function, and where the revenues are impacted or are not impacted or yet to be observed. So those calls are in the process right now. But yes, I would certainly say that there might be some rationalization eventually over a shorter or medium term, and people will understand their gaps and then again, come back in terms of better definitions and more rational in terms of taking future ready spaces. So that dynamics is yet to be kind of ascertained to a level that there is a yes or a wrong or yes or a no answer, I would say rightly as a correct answer for this particular question here.
Right.
So it's still, I think, under observation right now. And of course, moving from a high rental place to a low rental place, again, it's not so easy because we've already spent so much of money in doing up that office. What will happen to the WDV or the money that you'll write off in that particular asset that you spent on? And in case if it was just 2 years old or a year old or whatever, you've not even taken up that cost to an extent that you can write it off. So the question is not so easy to answer, to replace it with a lower rental space. It's a tough decision for an organization or a corporate also to take in a shorter or medium term, unless it's a long-term decision.
We have a question more of a legal nature. I would request Mr. Sai Prasanna to address it. The question is from Mr. Ashwin. How do you address the minimum lock-in period in contracts in case of exits happening in the retail space as a result of the pandemic? Would Mr. Prasanna like to take that question?
Yeah, Raghav. Sorry, if you can repeat that question, sorry.
Yes. How do you address the minimum lock-in period in contracts in case of exits happening in the retail space as a result of the pandemic?
I mean, with the contracts, we are only seeing a force majeure clause being negotiated right now, but then a lockdown period is not something which, which we are currently negotiating with any of the clients. That typically would be a negotiation, business negotiation between either the tenant or the mall landlord. So, but beyond that, not seen much cases of being negotiated contracts, from general perspective. But then yes, it always has a room for either going through an amendment or looking at the contract, you might have to negotiate on the force majeure clause, or if there is a termination clause or a suspension clause, is where we can put forth those suggestions with the landlord or with the party that we are, the contract has got executed with.
Okay, thank you. I think due to the paucity of time, we just taken.
Raghav, can I come in? I would like to ask a question, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Nuthan Bhargav. I do agree with Mr. Ahuja when he said that technology is now being put to use, which is a good thing. But what I really would suggest to all the stalwarts of the real estate market is that, put forth something to the government, which you may have already, that, they should stop witch hunting all the property developers and seeing them with a single eye, thinking that they're all cheats. They're not all cheats. Everybody's here to make money, and the government should be a little kind-hearted at the moment to give it a push, because we Asians are very much fond of property and gold. These are solid investments that we always have lived by and will live by. So something that, can be worked around, and the government becomes more kinder to the real estate people, and puts in some clauses because some of us are living by rentals, which is the only kind of income that we have. There are people who have parallel incomes also. So, something where even the guidelines are coming from your side and the government, which helps us people in the longer run to have offices, homes, and be sure of our investments also. So also another thing I would like to suggest, like in Dubai, the state, which is the government, and the builder, they come into a partnership, and until and unless their apartments or the building is not ready, it is not handed over to the concerned person. In the meanwhile, the people who are investing, they have an escrow account where they keep putting in their money. So this is just a suggestion of mine. I don't know how many of you agree with. Yeah, that's all that I have to say.
Ms. Bhagav, just one comment here. I think as an industry, or similar request along with the CREDAI and CI have been put forward to government. But I don't know if you have recently seen one of the government ministers has instructed developers that you have to reduce prices to sell. Don't expect much from the government. But yes, we will continue to try. And thanks. Good to hear that people are thinking on the same lines.
Yeah.
Okay, we have just enough time for 2 or 3 questions. I'd like to ask Mr. Aluwalia to please put forth your question and please put it as concisely as possible. It was very long in the chat. Please try and make it short.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a very simple question. This is a gloom and doom, and the media is constantly saying things are bad. You have men behind the machine. How would the senior leadership of the infrastructure engage them in such an atmosphere? The policies and the processes are very good on the paper, but it's the man who delivers in the end. So how are we going to cope up this challenge? Any one of them can answer.
Does your question pertain to the morale and motivation of the workforce on the ground?
I'm talking about the efficiency and the engagement levels. When you're under a stress, your efficiency will dip and the engagement will go for a toss. So all the plans, policies, objectives, they're pretty good on paper then. Someone has to execute it. Who?
I think this is better answered by Modi.
I'm sorry, we run the companies, not Mr. Modi.
But
Would you like to take it?
Yeah, I mean it's not my area of expertise, but I can still give it a shot. I think it's more of a collective approach, Mr. Haluwa. I mean, right now, and I'm trying to give a positive perspective to it. There's a lot of, as you rightly said, there's a lot of gloom, a lot of negativity around. But we need to take a step back and, if we see the basics of economy, it is going down because we are not doing any expenditure. We are back to spending on our necessities. That's a fact, right? So, and there is no case study. This is the first time everybody is facing that. Nobody knows what the solution is. But the problem is, and everybody knows what the problem is. So I personally feel that the moment we start to live with this situation like a normal flu, or there is some medical improvements happen 3-6 months or whatever, the moment the job security part comes back in picture, the expenditure cycle will start, and that is what will revive the economy. So it's just a matter of time and being patient, is what I feel. Everybody is doing their efforts. The government is doing their policies. I am not an expert in the policy. On the construction side, labor are willing to work extra hours if they need to. Everybody is doing their effort at a ground level and at a higher level as well. But again, it's just a matter of time. The moment a person is ensured that he will be getting an income, the spending pattern will start, and that is where the recovery will start. Because India can consume a lot of what they produce already. So I feel we'll be in the best place to revive it. But again, it's not in somebody's hand that a leader or somebody can propose something and it will turn. It is everybody who have to make the effort.
Thank you, Mr. Ahuja. We'll now quickly run through last 2 questions. I request Mr. Dhawan, he has a question, and then I will conclude with the last question of this.
Raghav, can I interrupt? There is a very pertinent and a simple question asked by Mr. Palaniswamy. Is this the best time to...
I was going to take that as a concluding question. So.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Right, yes.
No, I think, Raghav, let Mr. Palaniswamy ask the question, because I could see a couple of times he had raised that point.
Yes, definitely. I kept that for the end because it's very simple but a pertinent question, and it's related to the demand in real estate. In fact, I will club Mr. Palaniswamy's question and that of Mr. Gaurav Bail. Mr. Palaniswamy is simply asking, is it the best time to invest in real estate? Mr.
It's not a tricky question, it's a serious question. Yeah, sure. Because we are all talking about a different angle, you know. I mean, we are doing this to improve this, we are making this to make it faster, we are doing this to save the time we lost. It's all nice to hear it, but now you are all the bosses, or you are the seller, and I am a common man is the buyer. Do you recommend me to invest in this time, this period, in this year?
I'd like to take that question. Pruthi?
I'll take a shot on this, Raghav. So you know, the answer again to this question will depend upon the asset classes you are looking, and the idea for investment. The way I would like to address is this: that when we are talking to the funds who are based in all parts of the world and globally, they all are very active now for looking of right opportunities, and they all are saying that we are sitting on a lot of dry powder, and if we get the right value and the right opportunity, we are ready. So I think the answer is that if you get the right value and the right product, it is going to be the right time. And that's so these why I particularly quoted the global funds, etc., because more than anyone else, they do their research on the investment side.
I want to say generally one thing, public feeling, you know, just I take only half a minute. When you open the Times of India on quite a regular basis before this pandemic, every top news is basically the real estate, the default in handing over the flat and 3 years, and this project is dropped. All the big names you can see in the real estate, they were there, the defaulters. It was not giving actually a positive feeling to the investors. Now again, on the top of that, now what will going to happen in that, after this COVID situation over? Already it is a red situation, so now it becomes more so. How this will give a positive feeling to the investors?
If I can answer that question, again, it will all, you know, the basic question of investment is what exactly do you want as a return from the investment, and what is the duration that you're looking to invest? It's a basic question. If you start answering yourself, you'll be able to take that conclusive decision. If you are talking about a 1 to 3 year return period, then again, I'm nobody to say you are clever enough to understand what the situation is. If you're talking about a 10, 15, 20 year horizon, then again, you do the calculation and you will be able to understand what the return will be. So you actually do not need, you know, people like us to advise you. It's simple question. What is your duration of the investment and what is the return that you are expecting? The moment you have clarity in that, you'll be able to answer yourself.
No, I think it's a little bit diverted. The answer is what the second question what I asked was is that public sentiment, when it's always one is positive and another is negative. The public sentiment on this real estate builders, it's not that good or that positive because of delay in handing over the flats. Every time you hear it has gone to the legal system, court, lower court, higher court, and things like that. Now, on the top of that, this situation is also becoming, you know, maybe a more burden or more problematic. So, I think the situation become even a worst for the investors who want to do it in the real estate, you know.
For a short term, I agree.
And Mr. Palaniswamy, under the RERA also, I think there has been an extension or some relief provided to builders to hand over the projects. And RERA is quite a tightly knit provision to instill confidence for the investors. So maybe as Mr. Ahuja said, it's a temporary effect, and later on the confidence level should be higher. There's one question from Mr. Gaurav Bell, which is regarding, I think, Mr. Pruthi, again, it would be directed to you, is what is the expectation regarding private equity investment in the commercial real estate after the situation returns to normalcy? Is it going to, you know, it witnessed good inflows in 2019 and early 20. But what you expect, what is the sentiment moving forward when its situation is normal?
While I think the situation is temporary, nothing is permanent that I see, which is going to be that stark that's going to change, the way the businesses or the models were structured to an extent that will make that kind of an impact. So I think I'm pretty bullish about that in the coming years as well.
All right.
It's here to stay.
I have a final question, but just I'll keep it short only. Is that okay if somebody else is there?
No, that was all.
I just have a question, and I think probably Sai from JLL can answer. This is less of a question and more of a clarification, Sai. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs came up with some ordinance. They declared that they'll come up with an ordinance, and this was some time back, where they were talking about that those who are desirous of, approaching litigation, under a section 7, 8, or 9, in the NCLT, which is basically financial creditors, a lot of that linked to the real estate industry. That March 25 is the cutoff, so that means for this particular year, you can't really approach the courts. I mean, if you do, then it's already to be deferred by 6 months. It can be even 1 year. So can you just give a clarification because it was asked by somebody? Right. Raghav, is Sai there?
Mr. Prasanna, are you there with us?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, Raghav.
Would you like to take Mr. Dhawan's question, please?
Yes, Dhawan, sorry. If you can repeat.
Yeah, so Sai, the question was that, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they came up with some ruling, just when the pandemic lockdown started in the part of March, that, 7, 8, and 9, which are basically financial creditors, in the main list of what people litigate for in the NCLT. They declared that, those who will be probably desirous of going for a litigation, and a lot of that is also linked to the real estate industry, that option will not be available this year in view of the fact that there is a COVID-linked distress, So
that's correct.
Is that a ruling? Is that a correct understanding? Because this was asked by somebody.
No, I mean, as of now, that's the correct understanding. The government has suspended. We had initially the insolvency and bankruptcy code, which where we could pursue. From a corporate real estate perspective, we could recover those debts. But then with the COVID outbreak, the ministry has announced COVID-19 default. Like, prior to March, to 25th March, whatever defaults were there can still be pursued for recovery, with the insolvency proceedings. But then post 25th March is where now for a period of 6 months, they have, suspended those IBC proceedings. And in order to give a stimulus, they have also increased the amount of recovery to up to 1 crore and beyond. So whatever debts that are there, I mean, purely from a recovery point of view, anything below 1 crore cannot be pursued, as it is. And if the default is now within the period or post March of 25th onwards, then they, as it is, are suspended for next 6 months, which they also are saying that it could also get extended for another 1 year. So as of now, it is a fact that maybe as a stimulus to MSMEs is where this probably is introduced. But as of now, yes, those debts are on a standby. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's clear. Raghav?
All right, we have slightly crossed our time limit, but I would say it is still more efficient than events that are held in person. Moving forward, I would like to request now Mr. Rajesh Srivastav, President, Indo-Dutch Chamber of Business and Sciences, to please give the closing remarks, followed by Mr. Inyas Hendrik for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Raghav. I think it's a very difficult task to really summarize anything like this, which has been so wide-ranging and expansive. I guess we had some excellent speakers. They gave a lot of perspective. First of all, the real estate sector, as someone commented, this is not something, the problems, of course, have been accentuated because of this pandemic, but the sector itself has been under a lot of dark focus for a long time for all the right or wrong reasons. And as they say that here, you may have certain defaulters who have done things, badly in the past, but that shouldn't have colored the sector per se. But that's how it has been, right? Everyone thinks of real estate as something like vultures, which is, we used to think that only people like us in private equity are called hawks and vultures, but people have also said about real estate the same thing, right? So that's not quite true. I think it'll be first of all a couple of comments. One, that going forward, we all know that there'll be new normals in real estate as well. I guess not just commercial. Commercial, of course, is at the moment under a little bit of a more microscope because one doesn't know whether it will be all working from home or all working from co-working spaces. What will happen eventually? But if you look at the residential part of it, I guess there'll be some decided changes which will come on. One, I guess people will, start looking at smaller spaces than the large penthouses which people used to buy, because you never know, something like this hits you. You don't have maids working in your house, so you need to change the way you work really. Unfortunate part is that if you look at the government, and everybody commented, I do not think there has been any kind of a stimulus package, really speaking, for even nothing for other sectors as well, but not also for real estate. And these banks and all, and giving some kind of back-ended moratoriums, or let's say giving some subventions, that also doesn't come to handy in case of real estate. The only segment of real estate which has really got something has been the affordable housing, and nothing beyond. Actually, everybody has been left to the mercy of the bankers or whoever it is, and that's the way I think it will continue for a long time. I think two other things. One, I think RERA has been relatively a recent phenomenon. I think a few years only, and it'll be good to know from the some of these excellent people we have on the panel here, that how has it been after RERA has come into action, really speaking? Have things become more organized, or have the past ghosts, they still have been casting shadows over people even now today? My sense is after RERA has come into being, things have improved really for the customers, for the house owners, or for the commercial space owners. That's one. The other thing which I have to comment certainly is on private equity. I guess people would want to know. Once again, in private equity, you have different segments of private equity. My sense is that after this pandemic and the crash which people are seeing in real estate around the world, there will be a different segment of private equity which will become very, very active. My sense is there'll be a lot more flow than we've seen ever before real estate, maybe more from the hawks of private equity or the hedge fund or the distressed funds, so to say. They will come in to buy properties and projects at much marked down valuations, and especially to take out the lenders, because the whole overhang of lending into real estate is just too much. There has to be something which has to come by. Luckily, NCLT is suspended for 1 year, so there'll be more one-time settlements happening from the banks. And I think so. That's my take on the way the capital or the financing will flow into real estate. I wouldn't take more time. I guess we've overshot anyway, and I think we get straight on to the vote of thanks. But from my side, for sure, certainly thanks to BLBA, and it's been excellent partnering you, Rajiv. And I hope that we continue like this. Over for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rajesh. There was a time that we were ending our seminars with flowers. Today, there are no flowers.
You can do with flowery language.
Indeed. The time of flowers, I think history books will define this as the pre-COVID era, an era where living, working, and shopping was quite different. But of course, we cannot admire or smell beautiful flowers today, but I'm sure we all appreciate the positive feedback, the positive input from the panel. And we had an incredible panel. We had great speakers. We had Mohit from Bharti Realty. We had Vibor Sai from JLL, and we had Vishal from CBRE. Thank you, gentlemen, for your wonderful input. On behalf of BLBA, I'd like to thank the Indo Chamber for joining hands with us today. And finally, also a big thank you to the viewers, the people that have been taking part in this webinar. Thank you all. I hope to see you again during one of our joint events in future, and have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you so much. Bye.